Title: Why Your Emergency Fund Fails. Hook: So, you did everything you were supposed to. You listened to all the experts, you scrimped and saved, and you painstakingly built that safety net. 3 to 6 months of living expenses. You have an emergency fund. You're set, right? Well, what if I told you that for a huge number of people, that fund is a total house of cards? What if a few simple structural mistakes mean that your safety net is almost guaranteed to fail you when you need it most? Most people think if their emergency fund runs out, it's a discipline problem. They think they failed. But the reality is, the system failed them. Today, we're not talking about willpower. We're talking about design. We're going to uncover the 5 common design flaws that can drain your safety net before you even get a chance to use it. And then, we're going to fix them, one by one. Section 1. The core misunderstanding. It's a design problem, not a you problem. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, we have to reframe this whole conversation. The biggest reason emergency funds fail is that we treat them like a test of our saving discipline. We see the balance go down and we feel that little pang of personal failure. But this isn't about being good or bad with money. Most emergency funds don't fail because the person was lazy. They fail because they misunderstood the nature of a modern financial crisis. They built a financial tool for the wrong job. An emergency fund isn't just a pile of cash. It's a system. And if that system is poorly designed, it's going to collapse under pressure, no matter how much cash you manage to stuff into it. It's like building a bridge with cardboard. The effort might be huge, but the outcome is pretty predictable. So, let's stop blaming ourselves and start looking at the blueprint. The problem isn't your discipline, it's the design. And the great thing about design problems is that they have design solutions. Let's jump into the first and maybe the most common structural flaw. Section 2. Flaw number 1. The wrong container. Flaw. The first critical design flaw is where you're keeping the money. For way too many people, the emergency fund lives in one of two places, right in their main checking account or in a basic savings account that's directly linked to it. Now, this seems convenient, but it's a catastrophic mistake. It's like storing your fire extinguisher right next to the stove. Here's the deal. When your emergency money is mixed in with your everyday spending money, it stops feeling like an emergency fund. It just feels like a really nice high account balance. Psychologically, the wall between you and that money just crumbles. That great deal on a new TV, the weekend trip that's too good to pass up, the slightly more expensive than usual dinner out. All of these become so much easier to justify when the money is just sitting there. Your emergency fund dies a death of 1,000 tiny cuts. It's not wiped out by a tidal wave, it gets drained by a slow, leaky faucet. The solution is both simple and incredibly effective. Create separation. Your emergency fund needs to live in its own dedicated account, ideally a high-yield savings account that is not at the same bank as your primary checking account. This separation does two powerful things. First, it creates a psychological hurdle. To get to the money, you have to consciously go in and start a transfer. That tiny bit of friction is often enough to make you pause and ask, is this really an emergency? It forces you to be intentional. Second, a high-yield savings account actually puts your money to work. A fund that isn't growing is losing purchasing power to inflation every single day. Look, its main job isn't to generate huge returns, but keeping it in an account that at least tries to keep pace with inflation is just smart design. Storing it in a separate interest-bearing account protects it from you and from inflation. Section 3. Flaw. Number 2. The wrong amount. Flaw. The second flaw is aiming for the wrong target. The classic advice is to save 3 to 6 months of expenses. It's not bad advice, but it's dangerously vague. Most people either pull a number out of thin air or they calculate it the wrong way, which leads to a fund that's just not big enough for a real crisis. The first mistake is just flat-out underfunding. A lot of people start with a small goal like $1,000. And don't get me wrong, A starter emergency fund is a fantastic first step, but declaring victory there is like bringing a water pistol to a house fire. A single major car repair or a dental emergency can wipe that out in a heartbeat, leaving you right back where you started. The second, more sneaky mistake is miscalculating what your monthly expenses even are. When people hear that phrase, they often just think of their total monthly paycheck. But your emergency fund doesn't need to cover your daily latte, your Netflix subscription, or your weekend takeout. It needs to cover what is absolutely essential for you to survive. The solution is to get brutally honest and super specific. Grab a piece of paper or open a spreadsheet right now. We're going to define your essential monthly expenses. This includes just a few key categories: housing, your rent or mortgage, plus property taxes and insurance; utilities, power, water, heat, and your internet connection; food, a realistic grocery budget, not your restaurant budget; transportation, your car payment, insurance, and a conservative guess for gas or public transit; essential minimums, the absolute minimum payments on any debts you have. Add those up. That number? That's your bare-bones monthly survival number. Now, you multiply that by 3 to 6. That is your real emergency fund target. If you have a stable, single income, maybe 3 or 4 months is okay. But if you're in a single-income household, you're self-employed, or you have kids, you should be aiming for the 6-month mark, or maybe even more. An underfunded account isn't a safety net. It's a false sense of security. Section 4. Flaw. Number 3. The undefined emergency. Flaw. All right, let's say you've got the right amount of money in the right account. Your fund can still fail spectacularly if you don't actually define its purpose. This is the undefined emergency flaw. Without a clear, written definition of what an emergency is, your brain is scarily good at justifying just about any expense. A 50% off sale on that coat you've been eyeing can feel like an emergency. The fear of missing out on concert tickets can feel like an emergency. The burning desire to upgrade your phone can easily be framed as an urgent need. When the rules are fuzzy, you will always be tempted to dip into your savings for things that aren't real emergencies. This isn't a moral failing, it's just how we're wired. The solution is to create a user manual for your money. You need to write down, physically or digitally, what this money is actually for. A true emergency has 3 key ingredients. It is unexpected, it is necessary, and it is urgent. Let's break that down. Unexpected. A vacation you've been planning isn't an emergency. Your annual car registration isn't an emergency. These are predictable. Necessary. A new laptop because yours feels a little slow is not necessary. A giant hole in your roof that's letting in rain? That is necessary. A sudden job loss, a medical crisis, or a critical car repair so you can get to work. Those are necessary. Urgent. This means it needs money right now to prevent things from getting much, much worse. Your list of pre-approved emergencies might look something like this. Job loss, to cover your essential survival expenses. Unexpected medical or dental bills. Urgent and critical home repairs, like a burst pipe or a dead furnace in winter. Major, unavoidable car repairs. Emergency travel for a family crisis. That's it. A sale is not on the list. A bad day is not on the list. By defining the rules of the game before you're in a stressful situation, you take all the emotion and impulsivity out of the decision. And by the way, if this is clicking for you and you're getting some value out of this, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel out and lets me know I'm on the right track. Section 5, Flaw number 4, the set it and forget it. Flaw. This next flaw is sneaky because it can happen even after you've done everything else right. You saved the right amount, put it in the right place, and you even have the right rules. Then you either use the fund and never rebuild it, or you never touch it and just let it become obsolete. This is the set it and forget it flaw. The first part of this is the failure to replenish. An emergency hits, you use the fund. That's exactly what it's for, and you feel this huge wave of relief. But then life gets back to normal, and that urgency to rebuild your safety net just kind of fades. You cannot let this happen. Leaving your fund half empty is like driving around with a half-inflated spare tire. Sure, you survived one flat, but you are completely exposed to the next one. The second part is the failure to review. Your life isn't static. Your income might go up, you might have a kid, you might move to a more expensive city, or plain old inflation will just eat away at the value of your savings. The emergency fund you calculated 5 years ago probably isn't enough for your life today. A fund that is never revisited will eventually be too small to do its job. The solution is a two-part automated system: replenish and review. First, automate your replenishment. The moment you use any part of your emergency fund, your number one financial goal is refilling it. The best way to do this is to immediately set up automatic transfers from your checking account back into your high-yield savings account on every payday. Don't rely on willpower or memory. Automate it so you rebuild your buffer as quickly as you reasonably can. Second, schedule an annual review. Set a calendar reminder once a year, maybe on your birthday or New Year's Day, to do a quick emergency fund audit. Recalculate your 3 to 6 months of essential expenses based on your current life. Has your rent gone up? Did you get a new car payment? Adjust your target number. This 5-minute checkup makes sure your safety net actually grows with you. Section 6. Flaw. Number 5. The wrong asset. Flaw. This final design flaw is born from the best intentions, trying to make your emergency fund work harder for you by investing it. This is the wrong asset flaw, and it's probably the most dangerous of them all. With high-yield savings accounts sometimes struggling to beat inflation, it's so tempting to put that emergency cash into the stock market, maybe a safe ETF or some blue-chip stocks, to chase higher returns. This completely misunderstands the entire job of an emergency fund. The primary purpose of your emergency fund is not growth. It is stability and immediate availability. When you invested in the stock market, you're introducing market risk. And here's the real kicker: the events that force you to need your emergency fund, like a big recession that leads to a job loss, are often the very same events that cause the stock market to crash. Imagine you had your $30,000 emergency fund in an S&P 500 index fund in early 2020. In March, the world shuts down and you lose your job. You go to access your emergency fund only to find out it's now worth $20,000. You'd be forced to sell your investments at a huge loss at the absolute worst possible moment. That's called correlation risk, and it can completely vaporize a poorly designed emergency fund. Your fund must not be in anything that can drop in value or takes days to access. The solution here is a mindset shift. Your emergency fund is not an investment, it's an insurance policy. The return you get from it isn't measured in interest, it's measured in peace of mind and the financial stability that lets you get through a crisis without taking on high-interest debt or cashing out your real, long-term investments at a loss. Keep it in a safe, boring, and easily accessible account, like that high-yield savings account we talked about. That is its job. Conclusion. So, let's do a quick recap of the 5 structural flaws that can wreck a perfectly good emergency fund. The wrong container. Flaw. Keeping it way too close to your spending money. The wrong amount. Flaw. Guessing your savings target instead of calculating what you actually need to survive. The undefined emergency flaw. Not having clear written down rules for what the money is for. The set it and forget it flaw. Failing to refill the fund after you use it and not reviewing it once a year. The wrong asset flaw. Investing the money and exposing it to market risk when you can least afford it. Notice that not a single one of these is about willpower. They're all about design. By fixing the design, by putting your fund in a separate high-yield account, calculating the right amount, defining its purpose, and committing to a system to maintain it, you build a system that is robust, resilient, and ready for a real crisis. You make your own success the default setting. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever made one of these mistakes? Or do you have another tip that helps you build a bulletproof emergency fund? Drop it in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you want to dive deeper into structuring your finances for success, check out this next video on how to create a budget that you'll actually stick to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.